Hello, everyone. Good evening. And I will be reporting about experimental research and quantitative content analysis. So I am Ellen May Bendol. So let's ready. And first, let's talk about experimental research. So what is experimental research? Experimental research is a research conducted with a scientific approach using two sets of variables. The first set acts as a constant, which you use to measure the differences of the second set. Quantitative research methods, for example, are experimental. If you don't have enough data to support your decisions, you must first determine the facts. Experimental research gathers the data necessary to help you make better decisions. Okay, next slide. Any research conducted under scientifically acceptable conditions uses experimental methods. The success of experimental studies hinges on researchers confirming the change of a variable is based solely on the manipulation of the constant variable. The research should establish a notable cause and effect. You can conduct experimental research in the following situations. For example, time is a vital factor in establishing a relationship between cause and effect. Then, invariable behavior between cause and effect. And next, if you wish to understand the importance of the cause and effect. Okay, next slide. There are also three primary types of experimental design. First is pre-experimental research design. This is a group or various groups that are kept under observation after implementing factors of cause and effect. You'll conduct this research to understand whether further investigation is necessary for these particular groups. You can break down pre-experimental research further in three types. First, one-shot case study research design. Second, one group pre-test, post-test research design. And then we have static group comparison. Okay, we're down to the fifth slide. Next, we have true experimental research design. True experimental research relies on statistical analysis to prove or disprove a hypothesis, making it the most accurate form of research. Of the types of experimental design, only true design can establish a cause and effect relationship within a group. In a true experiment, three factors need to be satisfied. First, there should be a control group, which won't be subject to changes, and an experimental group, which will experience the change of variables. Second, a variable which can be manipulated by the researcher, and then there should be a random distribution. This experimental research method commonly occurs in the physical sciences. Okay, here we go with the sixth. So we have quasi or quasi-experimental research design. The word quasi indicates similarity. A quasi-experimental design is similar to experimental, but is not the same. The difference between the two is the assignment of a control group. In this research, an independent variable is manipulated, but the participants of a group are not randomly assigned. Quasi-research is used in field settings where random assignment is either irrelevant or not required. Okay, next. So let's go now to sorry, the advantages of experimental research. Experimental research allows you to test your idea in a controlled environment before taking it to market. It also provides the best method to test your theory, thanks to the following advantages. First advantage, researchers have a stronger hold over variables to obtain desired results. Next, the subject or industry does not impact the effectiveness of experimental research. Any industry can implement it for research purposes. Next, the results are also specific. Then, after analyzing the results, you can apply your findings to similar ideas or situations. You can also identify the cause and effect of a hypothesis. Researchers can further analyze this relationship to determine more in-depth ideas. Next one, experimental research makes an ideal starting point. The data you collect is a foundation in which to build more ideas and conduct more research. Okay, eighth slide. So let's go now to the quantitative content analysis. Quantitative content analysis is a research method in which features of textual, visual, or oral materials are systematically categorized and recorded so that they can be analyzed. Widely employed in the field of communication, it also has utility in a range of other fields. Central to content analysis is the process of coding, which involves following a set of instructions about what features to look for in a text and then making the designated notation when that feature appears. Conducting a successful content analysis requires careful attention to unitizing or segmenting the text for analysis, sampling or selecting an appropriate collection of units to analyze, reliability, or the different researchers making codes consistently, and validity using a coding scheme that adequately represents the specified phenomena. Okay, so we have the ninth. Content analysis is a research method used to identify patterns in recorded communication. To conduct content analysis, you systematically collect data from a set of texts, which can be written, oral, or visual. So examples, we have books, newspapers, and magazines, speeches and interviews, web content and social media posts, photographs and films. Okay, next. Content analysis can be both quantitative, focused on counting and measuring, and qualitative, focused on interpreting and understanding. In both types, you categorize or code words, themes, and concepts within the text and then analyze the results. Content analysis is a research technique for the systematic classification and description of communication content according to certain predetermined categories. It may involve quantitative or qualitative analysis or both. Technical objectivity requires that the categories of classification and analysis be clearly and operationally defined so that other researchers can follow them reliably. It is important to remember, however, that content analysis itself provides no direct data about the nature of the communicator, audience, or effects. Therefore, great caution must be exercised whenever this technique is used for any purpose other than the classification, description, and analysis of the manifest content of the communication. Okay, next. Okay, where are we? 12th slide. Okay, so content analysis may be defined as a methodology by which the researcher seeks to determine the manifest content of written, spoken, or published communication by systematic, objective, and quantitative analysis. It is then a quantitative method applicable to what has traditionally been called qualitative material, which is the written language. Okay, next. It is also systematic because it makes use of principled sampling and coding. Objective because the researcher's biases are not to affect the analysis, and quantifiable because it is primarily concerned with counting occurrences. So early definitions of quantitative content analysis are, where are we? 14 are distinguish between knowledge and interpretation of media content. According to Berelson, qualitative analysts often develop their interpretations as part of the analytic procedures or to remember the emergent properties of qualitative methods, while the quantitative analyst formed his interpretations after the analytic procedure. He based his interpretation upon the total completed analysis in order to see particular pieces of content in perspective. Okay, and we're down to the 14th. Let's go to the advantages of content analysis. So the first, unobtrusive data collection. You can analyze communication and social interaction without the direct involvement of participants. So your presence as a researcher doesn't influence the results. Next, transparent and replicable. When done well, content analysis follows a systematic procedure that can easily be replicated by other researchers, yielding results with high reliability. Then, this is highly flexible. You can conduct content analysis at any time, in any location, and at low cost. All you need is access to the appropriate sources. That's very easy. 15. Disadvantages of content analysis. So if there are advantages, there are disadvantages too. So first disadvantage, reductive. Focusing on words or phrases in isolation can sometimes be overly reductive, disregarding context, nuance, and ambiguous meanings. Subjective. Content analysis almost always involves some level of subjective interpretation, which can affect the reliability and validity of the results and conclusions. Time intensive. Manually coding large volumes of text is extremely time consuming and it can be difficult to automate effectively. 16th. Okay, so how to conduct content analysis. If you want to use content analysis in your research, you need to start with a clear, direct research question. That's, I think, very important. Example research question for content analysis is like this. Is there a difference in how the US media represents male and female politicians in terms of trustworthiness? Next, you follow these 5 steps. Number 1, select the content you will analyze. Based on your research question, choose the text that you will analyze. You need to decide the medium. Excuse me. Next is the criteria for inclusion. Then the parameters in terms of date, range, or location. Okay, next one. Number 2, you have to define the units and categories of analysis. Next, you need to determine the level at which you will analyze your chosen text. This means defining. So the units of meaning that will be coded. For example, are you going to record the frequency of individual words and phrases, the characteristics of people who produced or appear in the text, the presence and positioning of images, or the treatment of themes and concepts? The set of categories that you will use for coding, or categories can be objective characteristics. Example, female aged 40 to 50, lawyer, mother, or more conceptual. Example, trustworthy, corrupt, conservative, family-oriented. Okay, next, so we have the 18th. You have to also develop a set of rules for coding. I will just read a little. So, coding involves organizing the units of meaning into the previously defined categories. Especially with more conceptual categories, it's important to clearly define the rules for what will and won't be included to ensure that all texts are coded consistently. Okay, so the rest you can read this. Next, 19. 4. Code the text according to the rules. So you have to go through each tag and record all relevant data in the appropriate categories. So you can read this by yourself as well. Okay, next, 20. The last one, analyze the results and draw conclusions. Once coding is complete, the collected data is examined to find patterns and draw conclusions in response to your research question. You might use statistical analysis to find correlations or trends, discuss your interpretations of what the results mean, and make inferences about the creator's context and audience of the text. The results reveal that words and phrases related to trustworthiness appeared in the same sentence as a male politician more frequently than they did in the same sentence as a female politician. From the results, you conclude that national newspapers present male politicians as more trustworthy than female politicians, and infer that this might have an effect on readers' perceptions of women in politics. So that's the end of my report. Thank you so much for watching and listening. Thank you and God bless to all of you. Have a great day. Thank you so much. Bye.